Hello, in this video we will discuss about the brain. So we will discuss about the anatomical aspect and we will learn a bit more about the physiology. So in this way here is a person which that is the you can see that is the anterior part of the brain is looking like that which contains spinal cord and it is known as the central nervous system. So here is the dorsal view of the brain which that is showing in the figure. In this way, the anterior part is the frontal cortex, and behind the frontal cortex is the prefrontal cortex because it is the pre of the frontal cortex. And the middle is known as the parietal lobe, and the basically parietal cortex we can say. And in this way, basically the inside is the middle cortex. You can see that, and that parietal is basically the sidewise, and occipital is the behind the uh, behind the parietal lobe. So here is the left hemisphere and right hemisphere contain a cortex, brain cortex. This is the high central relay part for the integration and the whole things which that is controlled due to the cortex, cerebral cortex for getting the voluntary control, etc. So the cerebrum, higher brain cortex is known as. So here is the side view, which that is basically the sagittal view you can see, and this is the frontal lobe and central sulcus are here. This is that there are many sulcus. For example, between the frontal lobe and parietal lobe, and between the occipital lobe and parietal lobe, that is the sulcus are present. And in this way, here is the parietal lobe, and this is the mm, occipital lobe. So this is the differentiation of the different part of the brain. Here is the cerebellum, and this is the temporal lobe. So in this way, the temporal lobe, frontal lobe, parietal lobe, and occipital lobe, that is the basically totally main four lobes showing in the figure. So in this way, the spinal cord also memory, mammillary body, and medulla and pons, and that is the part of brain. So we will discuss here. I am drawing again the structure for understanding, and this is no cross section. And the cross section we will discuss here is the cerebrum, and this is the cerebral cortex, left and right. If we will discuss with the both, so this is the cross section. So it means you can say that is the only one half of the hemisphere. So in this way, here is you can see the corpus callosum are present in the yellow color, and here is the midbrain, and this is an important thalamus, and this is the upper part of the hypothalamus because the lower is the hypothalamus. So here is the pituitary gland, which that is the producing endocrine hormone, and here is the hypothalamus, which that is the upper part of the pituitary gland. And here is the abducens of midbrain. Basically, this is the aqueduct of the midbrain. So this is the aqueduct of the midbrain, and this is the here is the corpora quadri quadrigemina. This is the corpora quadrigemina, and here is the pineal gland, which that is used for the sleep cycle and produce melatonin. On the other hand, important here is the forebrain and the basically hindbrain and midbrain you can see, and this is the basically the part of the brain we will discussing. So in this way here you can see that is the another part you can see that is the ventricles. So the blue color is showing in the ventricle. This is the in the form of pear like. So it is the two ventricles looking like, and there are many their part. So here is the anterior horn of ventricle, and here is the third ventricle, and here is the fourth ventricle, and this is the lateral ventricle upper part you can see, and here is the cerebral aqueduct, and this is the cerebral aqueduct, and it is go into the neural canal into the spinal cord. And the important things we will discuss here is the interventricular interventricular foramen, and here is the interior horn. And all these things contain a cerebrospinal fluid. And this ventricle of the brain are a communicating network of cavities filled with cerebrospinal fluid. We will discuss also. So this is the anterior view. This is the anterior view. Contain a anterior horn here, and here is the anterior horn, inferior horn, and here is the lateral aperture of fourth ventricle to subarachnoid space, and this is the central canal of spinal cord, and this is the central canal of spinal cord, which that is become a neurocanal, which that is run whole the spinal cord is down. So this is used for the nourishment of the so you can see, and this is the lateral ventricle, you can see, and this is the third ventricle. So anyhow, let's begin to understand the function of the ventricle. So what is ventricle and why it's important? So the ventricle of the brain are a communicating network. So remember, of cavities filled with cerebrospinal fluid. So that fluid is extracellular fluid, not cellular fluid, but extracellular fluid produced from the central nervous cell. So cell will produce the cellular fluid, cerebrospinal fluid. So and located within the brain, and the parenchyma composed two lateral and third cerebral aqueduct, and fourth is the ventricle, and it is used for the protection and maintain central nervous system via nourishment, and the extra ions will be stored into the cerebrospinal fluid. So the excess of the cerebrospinal fluid will lead to edema. So that is known as the um, cranial edema or something. So here is we will discuss about the limbic system, that is the emotional part of our brain. We will discuss that is that separate things, and we will discuss here we are understanding the whole detail of the brain structure and their function. So here is the limbic system. Limbic system contain basically the amygdala, hypothalamus, thalamus, and the hippocampus and basal ganglia. So let's begin to understand. Here is the limbic system, which contain here is the round like structure, which that is a dark orange shape is known as the amygdala, and here we will discuss about the step by step to understand that things. So let's begin to understand from here is the amygdala. This is the memory, decision making, and emotional response, and here is the thalamus, which that is used for the we will discuss, and here is the hypothalamus, and here is the hippocampus, and this is the basal ganglia. So let's begin to understand the first of all amygdala, which that is the memory, decision, memory used for the memory long term and short term, and the decision making and emotional response, it means the stress response as well as the punishment response. On the other hand, here is the basal ganglia, which that is control of movement, learning, habit, and emotion. And basal ganglia contains the inhibitory and excitatory neuron for control body. For example, with our own choice due to the voluntary control. So that's control is due to the excitatory or inhibitory neurons. So on the other hand, here is the hypothalamus, which that is control body temperature due to the positive or negative feedback mechanism, and hunger, fatigue, sleep, endocrine secretion, controlling process development and growth. For example, lead to produce the different type of hormone due to the sympathetic nervous system or parasympathetic nervous system on the basis of requirement. And on the other hand, the heat increase or decrease on the basis of shutdown of the hypothalamus as a thermostat are increased. So the thalamus is the regulation of sleep, consciousness, and alertness, and primary function of thalamus is to relay motor sensory signal to the cerebral cortex. In this way, the thalamus is used for the regulation of sleep, and that is also stimulated by the pineal gland to produce the melatonin. So on the other hand, here is the hippocampus, which that is important, the memory and navigation and short-term memory and long-term memory, emotional memory also. So this is the basically hippocampus used for the memory, for memorization as well as the concept getting memory. So here is the basically the amygdala which stimulate the hypothalamus to response through a hippocampus is also for learning. What is that and what is how to do that? So that is all thing is due to the limbic system. So the limbic system is important for the emotional and pair bonding, as well as the oxytocin bond production, and there are many things which that is related to the limbic system, because the pituitary gland is also involved due to the hypothalamus. So let's begin to understand the cross section. Here is the skull, you can see, and here is the, we will discuss about the cross section of the different layer which that is wrapping around the brain, that is the brain barrier, work as a brain barrier for the protection and the injury protection. So let's begin to understand. Upper part is the skin, which contain our hairs. So here is the gray matter and white matter. It is contain outside is the gray matter and inside is the white matter, which that is composed the brain. And important thing is that the vertebral column, which that contains spinal cord, is contain gray matter inside, while the brain contain gray matter outside. So here is the blood vessel, which provide the supply. It is known as the uh, cranial artery and cranial veins. So here you can see that is the cerebrospinal fluid between the pia mater. So this pia mater is the first layer of the brain. So in this way you can see upper part of the pia mater is known as the arachnoid, and this arachnoid matter, and it is the uppermost is the dura mater. Arachnoid and dura matter and pia mater contain a meninges. It's collectively known as, which that is also used for the protection. And upper part is the bone, which that is bone, and periosteum is the upper part, and the outermost layer is known as the skin, which contain our hairs. And in this way the light is protect hair from the light. So the light is important protection through our hairs. So in this way here you can see, due to the shock absorbing due to the injury, so it will be protect. For example, cerebrospinal fluid is uses for protection. This is for the brain, here to the skin, to the bones, to the meninges, and inside the cerebrospinal fluid is the protective part for brain. So that is the protection part, and it is used for the protection. So that is important thing, which that is I am describing about that. So this was the, here is we will discuss about the water. So the water is the 80 to 85% more than body percentage, and because is for increased brain temperature and normal function and learning, alert, balance, chemical processes. So this is important, the water. So that is why the brain contain too much water. But important thing is that during the alcohol consumption, the water dehydrate due to the water absorbed into the blood. So we will feel the incognition. So the cognition will not occur and impair the um, uh, uh, behavior of the human due to the unable to complete work of the brain. So here is, if we will discuss about the energy, that is the brain required 20% energy by whole diet, and mostly sugar, because protein and fat is the part of brain which is unable to utilize the until long term fasting. And the size of the brain is basically the 1300 to 1400 gram, or 3 pounds for average in adult, which 350 to 400 gram, and it is contain a 3/4 of a pound in a newborn baby. So in this way I hope you make sense about the brain structure and their mechanism and physiology. So thanks for watching. Please make sure to subscribe.